Greetings, everyone. My name is Roger Martin, and this is the sixth edition of the Playing to Win Practitioner Insight series that I'm doing with my good friend and fellow management author, management thinker, Tiffany Bova. Welcome to number six, Tiffany.
Yeah, there's no place I'd rather be than having a conversation with you, Roger.
Oh, terrific. Well, listen, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do, so I've been at this series for over 4 years, about 4.25 years at this point. And the number one of those 200 plus in number of reads and number of claps is the article for today's discussion. And and the title is Being Too Busy Means Your Playing to Win strategy sucks. Your personal strategy sucks. And so maybe that was a controversial title, and maybe that attracted people. But they read it and clapped for it when they did it. So the premise, Tiffany, is that, and I'll check with you on this. I find that lots of people will come up to business people will come up to me and tell me how incredibly busy they are. And they think it's a badge of honor, right? They think I'm going to be, oh, wow, you're super busy. You're so tired. You're way behind. Oh, wow, you must be awesome. And what they don't realize is that my reaction is, oh, you've got a crummy personal strategy. Your personal strategy sucks. But do you see that a lot where people really want to tell you how incredibly busy they are?
Yeah, but I think time management is it's like everybody expects instantaneous responses. You got email, you got Slack, or you got Teams, or you got text messages or WhatsApp and Zoom calls and everything. Like I feel like unless you're really disciplined in your day, and I think that time management should align to what the priorities are, which is what we've been talking about in the prior 5 shows, and where you're playing to win and where you're planning and executing and tracking and all those things. I color code my calendar. Like that's my way of me making sure that my personal like I can look in a week and go, wow, I'm spending no time with clients, or I'm spending no time with my team, or I'm spending no time thinking.
Good for you. Well, yeah. So that's nice. So what is that? That is a management system. 5th box in our chart, enabling management system, that I would argue helps you with your where to play choice. Because the only way you could color code, right? You wouldn't be able to color code if you didn't have a sense of what are the segments in some sense that you're playing in. You have various different tasks. You could consider them a segment, so you can color code them only because you divvied them up. Otherwise, it would all be one color, not 3 or 4,
right.
however many colors. So that's an indication that you have a where to play philosophy, and the hope would be that you are deploying your precious time. And this is one of the interesting things about personal playing to win strategy. Unlike a corporation, right? You cannot expand your capacity. You have to sleep a certain amount of time, and there are 24 hours a day, minus sleep, minus other fun stuff, is the amount of fixed capacity your factory, the Tiffany Bova factory, has. And so if you're really good, it doesn't mean you get to double your capacity. You can't. Now people say, "Oh, nobody can hire people to do work for me." Well, all that means is more meetings, as far as I'm concerned. So, because your factory is fixed as a person, I would argue your playing to win strategy is even more important than it is for a company, because you've got to figure out how to deploy your time, aware on what activities am I going to engage in. And you should deploy them in a way that you win. And what does winning mean in this case? It means that those are the highest value activities you can engage in, right? That those activities, whatever you're paid, your value actually per hour is greater than that, because you've cleverly figured out the where to play that's matched with
right.
the how to win. And if you're going to try and win that way, you got to make sure you're building your capabilities in that. if when you started being a writer as part of your participation in the world of business. You weren't always a writer, right? You started to write
Right.
books. What you had to do, build your capability, get better at that by practice, by listening to other people, by getting good editors, whatever it was. You built the capabilities to win, that is, to be a thought leader, because that's part of the where to play of your choice. And I argue in the article that if you do that badly, you'll always be frantically busy, uh, because you're doing this and that and everything. You're like a company, right? That you're like a retail store. Do you know how some retailers that you walk into, where there's just crap all over the place? The shelves look hellish. There's all sorts of stuff on the floor around the end of the aisles. And then you walk into some other stores, like you walk into your Apple store, and you say, "Well, there's nothing here." Uh, so
Minimalism.
their sales per square foot are whatever 10 times the next highest in that mall, because they have a very clear uncluttered strategy.
Well, I think there's a few things. I remember the days when it would be like literally, 8 to 5, I'd have meetings. And then from 5 to 9 p.m., I would like get the work done from all the meetings. Right. And
Yep.
so, but I would say of late, especially during the pandemic, that productivity lens of more, like, and to your point, you can't work. It's just not possible. So,
Yeah. Your
there's a
productivity per hour goes into the tank as soon as you start working too much. Yep.
correct, right? And so let me share this, because I think this
Yep.
ties back to everything that we've been talking about in the prior shows, that what and how do you apply this to your personal, right? Because if you can't apply this to the personal, like I gave my story of like my calendar and how I
Yeah.
sort of make time and what's important, it is set against the priorities. And I do feel that frantic pace. If I start to get off and it's just this, I'm running hard and fast 4 or 5 things at the same time, I notice right away that my quality of work is going down.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think, Tiffany, and you probably have seen this too, that lots of executives fall prey to that. They have a of implicit view that they can keep working more hours to get more done, and they don't realize how much the productivity per hour falls. So that if they add 10% more hours, their productivity goes down because every hour was 12% less productive. Yeah, so that's why this is play to win as applied to the personal. And you have to have an aspiration. What value are you seeking to contribute to your organization? And then which activities will I allocate my time, in what proportion, and which won't I? That's always the question. And strategy is as much what won't I do versus what will I do. How will I create disproportionate value from each hour of work? So I only want to engage in hours of work where I can contribute disproportionately high value. And then I need to develop a set of capabilities for that and have systems created. And in the article, I use as an example my time. I was dean of the Rotman School of Management, as you well know, for 15 years. And it was my first academic job. It's funny, I knew nothing about the job going into it, but I've sort of figured out pretty quickly that the way academic administrators like deans seem to spend their time wasn't very efficient or effective. And so I set a goal for myself. I said, I'm going to see what previous deans of the school, how they distribute their time. And fortunately, thanks to Outlook, my decanal secretary, who had been a secretary for a number of deans over 20 years, I kind of had some good records, and we just figured out what they spent their time on. And I said, I would like to subtract out of their time allocation 100 days a year, right? So 2 days a week, I want to subtract out of their schedule to replace them, right, in that how to win box, with places where I could create disproportionate value. And so I did things like I had a great CAO, a woman named Mary Ellen Yeomans, who was really talented. The only reason she was in that job is her husband was a star American. They're both Americans from Washington. He was a star psychology professor, and she took this job. She was underutilized, smart as a whip, hardworking, but the dean did all sorts of things that Mary Ellen could easily do. And so I went to Mary Ellen and said, the previous dean spent 50 days a year on all things planning, budgeting, financial management, etc. I want to take that down to 5, literally 5. And she at first was all upset with me. She said, "You don't care about that? Isn't it more important to you?" I said, "No, no, 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 no. You're awesome. You're grotesquely under leveraged. A whole bunch of this stuff you can do as well or better than I can. And I want to elevate you by being able to do more. You'll be more valuable, and you'll free up will free up 45 of my desired 100 days to do things that no other dean could do because they didn't have the time." And I did the same with faculty hiring, and took another 45 days off. And by the way, I was able to double over time Mary Ellen's salary so that she was the highest paid chief administrative officer in the university. And I think would go to university meetings of CAOs with her chest puffed out and saying, "I did this, I did that." And they're all like, "My dean will never let me do that." So it was good for her. Like, she was happy as can be, better paid, more fulfilled in her career. Same with Peter Pauly, my vice dean academic. And I got my 100 days to go write books, help Rotman School be more famous in the outside world, fundraise more than all the rest of the Canadian business schools put together, all 33 of them put together. And everybody sort of thought that I must never sleep, right? Because they imagined that I was doing all the things that deans usually did, plus all these additional activities. But I didn't. I subtracted 100 to add 100 in the how to win box that were special days.
Well, I think that the subtraction is the highlight in this for me,
Yeah.
right? Because people think, oh, for me to add value, I have to add more.
Yes.
When it could literally be to add value in the first box, sort of the what unique value will I contribute and how will I do it? What can I remove so I can focus where I can add the most value?
Yeah.
And you can't just arbitrarily remove as well. Like, what is the priority and how? So yours is, well, we needed to have the right faculty. So recruitment is a priority, right? And then, this is what I need to do for our part of the school. And so that's a priority. And so I think where I had to learn over time was spending that kind of time in the planning motion that sometimes people don't take. They don't take it because they're too busy, right? Which
No,
is
you're right. You're right, Tiffany. You put your finger right on it, and I'll give you a story. I'll tell you part of more on that story that reinforces it, which is I spent a disproportionate time over the 50-day a year kind of rate in the first 6 months with Mary Ellen Yeomans. So much that her husband John, who's a great guy, once phoned me up and said, "You're micromanaging Mary Ellen." And I said, "No, actually, John, I'm not. I'm investing like crazy in her so that she will have more freedom than any other CAO in the university." And he was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't understand it, but it was so evident that I was spending so much time with her. But I had to do what I called, for any Star Trek fans out there, the Vulcan mind meld. We had to be thinking similarly about what we were trying to accomplish, and we had huge goals that we were trying to accomplish on the financial management of the school. But once I got that, boom, off she went running. And I did the same with Peter Pauly. But a bunch of it required also investment above, because a dean is like a business unit president, right? I had the provost, who's the moral equivalent of the COO of a company that I
right.
reported directly to, and he was apoplectic when he heard about my financial planning thing, right? Because by university standards, I had to sign off that I was doing all these things every week. I did this or that, and I went to him and I said, "I'm not." and he was like apoplectic, but he finally settled down because he realized, kind of what I had in mind, thankfully. And it all worked out well. And then I had to do the same thing with the provost again, on faculty hiring. I gave a bunch of responsibilities to Peter Pauly that only a dean is supposed to do. And I was like, don't make any sense. I'm not doing it. And so there's a bunch of that goes to your planning point. There's a bunch of stuff you've got to pay for up front, and I paid for upfront by having negotiations with Adel, the provost, that all went well, and then the Vulcan mind meld with Mary Ellen and Peter. Those were investments in time that enabled payoff. So over investing for 6 months with Mary Ellen paid off in 14 and a half years of 5 days rather than 50 days. That's a lot of time. Unless you really suck, right? You can do a heck of a lot with 45 days a year for 14 and a half years.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you go back on that and you're listening and you're just like, wow, I always give this example that an average salesperson only spends about 30% of their time actually selling, which means 70% of their time is spent not selling. So it's administrative stuff and back end stuff and research and all that. So if you could increase the time they spent actually doing what you hired them to do, i.e. sell, by 5% or 7% or 10% time wise, right? So now they've
That'd
gone
be
from
huge.
30% of the time, 10% would be huge, especially considering some 60% of them already know they're going to miss quota in the beginning of the year. Like they're like, yeah, 60% will just miss quota. It's not a one-to-one. Like if you give them another percent back, they're going to hit another percent of quota, right? Or if they get 10% time back, they're going to hit 10 more percent of quota. But I always say, take an inventory of the last month, the last 30 days of your time. And so I always say color code because that helps me just very quickly. Like
Yeah.
how much was research? How much was face-to-face meetings? How much was proposal generation? How much was internal meetings? Whatever it is.
Yep.
And then how do you potentially use technology to give you some of that time back, right? Where you could automate something or you could use a new tool and you need to learn something. But I think that's the second where to play, kind of what activities to allocate my time towards in proportion. And then how can you create a disproportionate amount of value from each hour of work? Because now you're not doing things that are tactical or repeatable or sort of that low level that technology for sure can take out of your off
Sure.
your plate. And then what things do I need to reskill on? So for example, well, wow, I don't have to write that email. I could use AI, but you don't know how to do it. Well, now you need to kind of develop
Yep.
those capabilities and skills and reskill. And then, okay, now that I have all that, do I have the right metrics in place or the OKRs or the KPIs or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
To tell me that now what I'm doing is it actually showing value. So now I've given myself 10, 20, 30% time back to do what I love doing and I got hired to do. Is my performance improving, right? And then you start all over again. But you really have to kind of put the work in.
Yes.
Working
Yes.
harder isn't a great strategy.
No.
You really do have to figure out how to work smarter.
Yeah. And on that front, yeah. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. And getting other people's help is important. So on the enabling management system, you've got your color coded scheme. I like that. I don't do that. I probably should. But for me, I had a wonderful chief of staff named Suzanne Sprague, and she was responsible for keeping me kind of on the right tasks. So my enabling management system was sitting down with Suzanne every Monday morning, either on the phone if I was traveling or she was traveling, or in person, to map out the week to say, is this consistent with the where to play, how to win, or have you slid back off of it? So it was. It's not something you always have to do by yourself. You can get the help of other people to do it. Now, a dean is a relatively senior person, and so they can have a chief of staff. I know some people won't have that, and they've got to do it more themselves. But that's why I was struck immediately with your color coding, right? That's a management system. That's an example of a management system for personal, for having a better than worse personal strategy. All those little things matter. All those little things count, and it enables you to take charge of your work life and take charge of your productivity. Don't put yourself in a productivity box by having a very weak where to play, how to win. And that's what I see often. It's sort of I'm shaking my head and watching somebody and saying, why are they spending that much time on that thing? Why? And I can't see my way to it.
Well, it was, I really had to force myself, right? I just figured work harder, 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 harder,
Yep.
right? Take on
Yep.
more, 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 right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it was. It was sort of like more on the plate, more on the plate. And like, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, right? More on the plate, more on the plate. And then I started to realize I was burning out. And
Yep.
if I was burning out, my people were burning out, because if I'm burning out, it all rolls downhill, right? Then I'm
Yes.
burning everyone else out, right? So I had to find a way to back up and give myself that space where, okay, let me just analyze what it is that I'm doing. Where am I? How can, and by the way, as you move up, how do you delegate? Like, sometimes you feel like I have to do everything. No one can do it better. It is true. Like you said, there will be a point in time where you could do it faster than someone else. But over time, if they can do it, you don't have to do it. Right. And so
Absolutely.
it's a little bit of a lift to get them up to speed, but you can't go, oh, it's just faster for me to do it. Yeah. In the first time, and maybe the second, less so the third and the fourth and the fifth. By the time you get to the eighth, ninth, 10th time, whatever, they should be doing it equally as fast, or
Yep.
you didn't teach them how to do it right, or
No, that's right. You
right.
didn't make that
Yeah,
investment.
you
Exactly.
didn't make that investment. So, look, I always say that at the end of my keynotes, one of the last section, and I always make sure that I have it in there, is a section called Invest in You. Like,
Mm,
if you won't invest in yourself, nobody else will. So
right.
investing in your time management, your own self-management, your own personal win strategy. Is it color coding your calendar? Is it surrounding yourself with better? Is it creating a accountability buddy? Is it reading a book together, reading Playing to Win, or listening to this and then sharing it with your team? Whatever it is, like, it has to be something, but it has to start with, you have to be really committed to your own personal development, regardless of what your employer will do or not do for you. It's not their fault. If you're not sort of personally instigating it, then it gets even more difficult.
No, I love that. I love that, Tiffany. And in some sense, what I'd say is, and when you're doing what Tiffany is suggesting doing, which I 100% endorse, use this tool. Use this tool of what's my where to play, how to win, what's my aspiration, to help guide the reflections that Tiffany's suggesting that you do, and hopefully that'll provide a little pathway for you to figure out how to have a personal strategy that doesn't suck, because that'll make you happier, and the people, as you correctly say, Tiffany, the people around you happier too.
Yeah. And I tell that story about, I didn't realize I was burning out. I was very early in my management career, if you will.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I was burning everybody else out. And so, kind of my first round of, as I got more senior and senior, it didn't necessarily mean I was a better and better manager. And a lot of that had to do with, Roger, and you and I have talked about this on my podcast, is
Yeah.
I never went and got my MBA. Like, I
Mm.
learned by doing. And I would tell you that no one stopped me along my career progression and say, okay, now if you're going to manage this, let's make sure you know how to do these things. Like, it was just kind of, here's your title change your business card,
Yes.
go.
Go, go,
Go,
girl.
be
You go,
free.
girl.
You go, girl, right? And I messed up, right? And so I hope, I believe in my heart that if I could go back 20 years and be that manager again, I would do it differently, because
Yeah.
now I didn't know what I didn't know. I know more now. I would hopefully be a better leader and manager. But I think that goes back to, if you are going to work with people and help them career develop because you're already in a senior position, this is the way you want to help them do it. Don't
Yes.
just give them more responsibility. Have them go through an exercise like this, right?
Yes.
Of how are they going to personally win, and
Yes.
what is that method or strategy and plan to get there? And that's what I'd say there.
I think that is a good way to close this up and tie it up. That's a great way to end it. It's encouraging. It's aspirational, and I think, I hope that the two of us have given enough concrete advice on how to pursue that aspiration.
Excellent. Well, the sixth show is behind us. Don't forget to leave comments and questions. Roger and I will get to them as soon as we can. We hope you will join us for the next one, our show 7. But if you didn't catch the previous 5, please go back to my LinkedIn or my YouTube channel. You will see all the prior shows and you can see how they're kind of building upon each other. But as always, my friend Roger Martin, a great conversation, and I can't wait to do it again next time.
Thank you. And the same holds for me. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.